South Carolina Senator and Republican presidential candidate Tim Scott unveiling a new economic plan. He calls it Build, Not Borrow. Senator Scott joins us now. He's the lead Republican on the Banking Committee, and it's great to welcome you on the Squawk Box, Senator. You are welcome. We might need a plan. The latest from the Census Bureau, median real income for Americans was $78,250 in 2019. 2022, it was down almost $4,000. We've got nowhere. $74,580. What does your plan do to try to reverse that trend?
Well, one of the things we have to remember is that under Joe Biden, we have 52 consecutive paychecks where our spending power went down. One of the ways that we can increase our spending power is to lower the tax burden on our paychecks. My plan cuts taxes, which requires us to cut spending and cut government as well. So think about the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that I helped write. That provided the average family about $4,400 back in their paychecks. They got to keep their own money. Let's do that again. Let's make those tax cuts permanent, not just let them in 2025, but let's make them permanent. At the same time, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a very interesting name for Joe Biden's plan, increased taxes. We have to rescind those tax increases and eliminate the 87,000 IRS agents that will be hired over 10 years so that we focus more of our attention and our time on the things that encourages and creates economic activity in our nation.
We also just heard so far debt service, and we should know this. We're talking about the Fed. We just saw what the ECB did. So $800 billion so far. That's going to put the deficit this year at $2 trillion. But all these things, I don't see how you're going to cut taxes and think that isn't the deficit. That's going to worsen the deficit, isn't it?
Well, we should take a look back at the results of the TCJA in 2017, 2018. What we saw with lower taxes, we lowered the corporate tax from 35 to 21. We lowered all the taxes on the domestic side. We saw revenue to the Treasury go up in 2019, again as well in 2018. So we saw 2 consecutive years of revenue growth to the Treasury at the same time we cut taxes. I believe the Laffer curve still works, frankly, that the lower taxes creates and encourages capital to come off the sidelines. And when that happens, you see growth to the revenue in the Treasury. We saw that in 2019. We saw it in 2018. I believe that if we cut taxes again, we'll see that same trajectory that will stimulate growth in our economy. And frankly, we have to bring home jobs, reshore jobs from around the world. And that's why my Opportunity Zones 2.0 is so important.
Senator, there's no question that there was additional revenue. I don't think anyone's going to debate that. I think the question is whether there was more revenue than there would have been otherwise to actually fill the gap. And I think there's still a question mark at that point about whether that was the case then and would have continued to be the case. No?
Well, we could look back at the Bush years or the Clinton years and see what tax cuts did then. We can frankly go back to the Mellon tax cuts in the 1930s and see that revenues went up. We just had too much spending. We see that time and time again. The Reagan years saw the exact same thing happen. You cut taxes, revenue goes up, but spending exceeds it. And so what we're seeing in the Biden years is even though we have had a lower tax environment, when you have $2 trillion of overspending or 40% more spending than revenues come in, of course, you're going to have a large deficit. That's why we are looking at a $2 trillion deficit this fiscal year. It's not simply a revenue problem, it's a spending problem. That's why my plan not only does it cut taxes, it cuts spending. We have to get back to the pre-pandemic level of spending when it comes to non-defense discretionary spending. That's the way we right the ship.